Now we are on to 12 big reasons why it is so scary to get into a relationship or marriage with someone that we hardly know. Number one, a lack of compatibility assessment. I already explained that we have different standards for getting into marriage. For those who believe in love, respect, and compatibility, I'm your girl, and this is what we're dealing with here. If your standards are any other thing like just convenience, because these two families or these two people are people from good backgrounds, I don't know anything about that. I don't work with that. I just work on what obtains in my circle, and that's love, respect, and companionship and compatibility. Okay, so number one, you may not have had enough time to understand if your core values and beliefs align. Even sometimes, communication requires some time for us to be able to tell if we're actually on the same page. Because sometimes someone will tell you something, or you tell someone something, and then later on down the line, you see that there was misinterpretation and misunderstanding. And where you thought the communication was clear, turns out that a different interpretation was given to what was said by the other party. Life goals. Without sufficient knowledge, you may find out later that your life goals, such as career aspirations, financial plans, are not compatible. People have actually gotten into marriage to find out that the people with whom they were planning and hoping to have children to raise a family with didn't want to have children after all. And in fact, sometimes they've already had these conversations only to get in there and find out that they really don't want to have a child, or they really don't want to have another child. And this is not something that you can easily just toss out the window and change your mind about and go on with life business as usual. You can see how this can cause a big disruption in somebody's life. Sometimes people have gotten into marriage to find out that after they had a conversation about their career aspirations and it looked like everyone was on board and on the same page, they got in there to find out that the other party had no intention at all for them to pursue their career aspirations, and in fact decided to become a clog in the wheel of their career goals, putting an end or a temporary stop, jeopardizing their career goals. And so that's why it takes time. It's important to find out that we've communicated this thing, it's been understood, and that this person is actually someone who's going to stand by their word. Because someone can say yes to us, but then we find out with time that they're not a person who is reliable and who will stand by what they say. That's why it's important that we are able to spend time enough to test a person to see if they're an honorable person who will honor what they've promised. Number two of 12 big reasons why it's scary to get into a relationship or marriage with someone that we don't know very well is an incomplete knowledge of the person's personality and characteristics, or an understanding of their personality, We need to know a person's behavior under stress, because that's when people show their true colors, when they're under stress and pressure. Without seeing the side of your partner, you may be in for a very big surprise. How are you going to say this if you rush into that relationship? You haven't had time to assess how they behave under stress and pressure. And what about their conflict resolution style? You need to understand the way that they resolve conflicts, and you need to be comfortable with it. Because what if they're the type who will keep quiet when there's a conflict, who want to deal with things and think about it, mull it over, or who even just completely want to just put the storm in a cup and cover it and leave it there forever, while you are the type who likes to talk over things because you want to iron things and straighten things out immediately and continue your relationship? What if you don't understand that, or you don't agree with that, or it drives you crazy, so you end up being frustrated, and your own style of resolving conflicts is frustrating to them? That's why it's important that we spend time to know this person's conflict resolution style, because you don't want to be frightened to death while they're taking their time mulling over an issue for 2 weeks or 2 months, and vice versa. 3, potential hidden health issues. Sometimes people have gotten in to find out that their partner has the health issue that they just aren't even compatible with. Together they cannot make things work because of this health issue, or it's going to put too much pressure, something that you're not able to hold. Remember that our relationships are supposed to be there even in sickness and in health. And if you're not aware, and there's already a health condition that if you had been aware, you might have taken a different decision about being in a relationship with them, and this is hidden from you, or you haven't discovered this because you haven't been around them long enough, then this already poses stress for the relationship. Now, emotional stability and maturity. It takes time to assess emotional stability and maturity. You cannot stress this enough, oh my goodness. Because everybody feels that what they're doing is right, is justified, and is the mature way to handle something as an adult. What if their style is not something you believe in, and vice versa? To be able to properly assess a person's emotional stability and maturity is something that requires time and some shared experiences, without which you're not really going to be able to know if you're going to be compatible in that, because everyone feels that what they're doing is the right thing at all times. We always all feel that we're justified, and the steps that we're taking are the mature steps that an adult will take. So if you don't have anything to compare it on, if you don't have any experiences together, how are we going to know that? That requires some time together. Our emotional stability and maturity is going to show up when we need to handle a crisis. So experiencing and handling crisis together can reveal a lot about our emotional resilience and our support systems and the way that we operate under a crisis situation. Number 5, financial discrepancies. Handling and spending money. Spending and saving habits are important. Without knowing your partner very well, you might be in for a surprise. You might be discovering so many or too many significant differences in your approach to spending and handling money and your financial priorities and habits. Debts and financial obligations. What if this person has some financial obligations or debts that can affect your life together? What if they are owing so much money that you're going to spend the rest of your life battling this, and this becomes a grey shadow over your relationship and over your life? And then you find out that you wish you'd never met this person because all of a sudden your life has turned upside down because of the financial burden that they carry. Is this something that you really want to share? If you don't know them long enough, you might not have any idea. You might never get any wind of what's happening with them financially. You need to spend enough time to be able to understand and decipher what's happening with this person financial wise. How do they actually approach finances? Is it something that's going to work for you? Because finances are some of the issues that place a huge strain on relationships. Even when people have known each other and things spring up, how much more when this is someone that you don't know? Debt is scary. Even your own debt is scary enough for you. Then talk about carrying someone else's, and someone else's that you never even knew how big of a debt it was. 6, social and family dynamics. Talk about family background. Understanding your partner's family background and the dynamics in the family is very important. This gives you an idea of the things that shape them, shape their values and priorities, and understand the way that they handle relationships with those who are closest to them, understand what's going on in their family, and understand how this has shaped their mind and their attitudes to life. Also, meeting their social circle, their friends, gives you good insight into the kind of person this is, their habits, and the things that make them happy, the things that make them sad, the things that make them come alive. Makes you really understand the person better, because the way that a person behaves with you and you alone doesn't give you a full understanding of their character and who they are or their personality. You need to see them handle their relationships outside of your relationship, and this requires time for you to know different things happening with them and other people and their reaction to them, because the way that they deal with other people is going to give you an idea how they're likely going to see issues that arise between you and how they're going to handle issues. This is a really scary one. If there are people who are so self-centered and they don't give any consideration to another person's feelings when issues arise, who just believe that everything about them is what matters, then you're in for a bad ride. Then you're in for a really rocky ride. And the worst part is if maybe this is someone who actually has a personality or mental disorder. These things are usually hidden. They don't come popping out at you right off the bat. And so it's going to take time for you to figure out, even someone that you've known for a while, you're going to need to have certain things that happen where maybe sometimes you begin to ask yourself, wait, am I really seeing this? Is this really what happened? And then you need to start putting 2 and 2 together. So personality disorders or mental disorders can be very debilitating to handle in a relationship. In fact, even with people who are not close to you, if they are suffering from some type of personality or mental disorder, it's difficult to relate with them. It's difficult to do things with them and to come to terms with things with them. How much more getting into a marriage with one of these people? And what it usually translates to in the end is that the person that you thought that they were is actually not at all who they were. So everything that you are doing together in their mind, in their warped mind, their interpretation to those things is completely different from the reality of what you're both experiencing. And so you're going to find now that when you're heading this direction, they're heading that direction, and both people are confused, and they are genuinely confused because their disorder does not allow them to understand that this is reality that you're heading towards. And so you're going to get into fights with them, and they're never going to see things your way, because this is when we're talking about a brain wiring through which they approach life. So they're seeing life through lenses that are very different from what you're seeing, and you're never going to find congruence. And so now the shit really hits the fan. This is one of the biggest reasons why it's very dangerous and risky to get into a rush relationship or a marriage with someone that we barely know, no matter how good it looks. Number 10, compatibility and daily lifestyle. Living habits. You need to think about their living habits. Hygiene, punctuality, honesty, sincerity, stability. Things are things that are going to only become evident after time. In the beginning, anyone can keep up appearances by pretending to be health conscious, hygiene conscious, considerate, clean, all these things. And so we have to keep in mind that it takes time, we have to keep in mind that it takes time for these things to pop out of that person. And are we sure that this is going to be something that we're going to be able to deal with? The only way to know is to give it time. Give it time, and then we figure out who we're dealing with. Otherwise, and emotional intimacy. Number 11, intimacy and sexual compatibility. This is huge. Should have been top. Okay, so I didn't do this in accordance to importance. I just made a list, and that's what we have. Next time I'm doing this, I'm going to rearrange them in order of, nothing is even more important than the other. Anyway, number 11, intimacy and sexual compatibility. Physical and sexual compatibility is really crucial. Can take time to understand, and so it's a gradual process. Because even people that have known themselves even people that have known themselves for a while still keep on discovering new things about each other. How much more people who never knew themselves before. In the beginning, anyone can feign anything and pretend to be anything, but it takes time to actually understand how a person comes into a sexually intimate scenario. We need to know if this is going to work for us, if we're compatible physically and sexually. Emotional intimacy. Building deep emotional intimacy is really relevant in a relationship, and this takes time, nothing but time. I mean, you can't open up yourself. There are so many things that people need to know about you to be able to trust you, and without trust, you can't really have emotional intimacy because you're not going to be opening up yourself to a total stranger. So it's almost impossible that you know the person that you're dealing with, because in a short period of time, there are things about me, things about them that no one wants to reveal to the next person because you don't know this person. And even if you went ahead and revealed these things to them, what if they turned around and used them against you? So you need to know that this person is capable of sharing and holding in confidence the things that you share with them in your emotional and intimate moments. And this takes time. Now, what about red flags and deal breakers? Your red flags and the deal breakers that make it or mar a relationship for you may not be immediately apparent. Those are things that actually take time to also be revealed because everyone is going to be on their best behavior in the beginning. So what you're seeing at the beginning hasn't given you the full report of who this person is. And even you yourself haven't revealed the full person who you are. In the beginning, you're also happy, so you're not paying attention to so many things and you're going to ignore even things that may matter to you. But when it becomes something that's going to be a permanent fixture with you now, you're going to realize that I cannot deal with this on a long term, and so you're going to handle it. So what if the way you're dealing with it is controlling or manipulating, or the way they're dealing with it is controlling or manipulating? All this requires time and patience and experience. So understanding behaviors and attitudes requires time and experience. Because sometimes even the things that other people do, even the disrespectful things that people do, they may not really understand how it's affecting other people, because from where they're coming from, perhaps it isn't regarded as a big deal, or they think it's normal, or you think what you're doing is normal. But when you understand this person better, then you can understand why they see things that way, and then you can actually explain to them why you say it differently, and vice versa, and then you can understand yourselves better going forward. But when you get into a relationship to go and find that out, what if it's something that you really cannot stand? Now you're either stuck with it, or you still have to break this relationship and then wait for another relationship in the future. So it's important to take time out to discover, to allow things to happen between you so that you can see the red flags and deal breakers, if there are any, and know how to handle them, and see that there's something that you can actually manage if you're going to go forward in a relationship. And I can give you one extra point. What about prenuptial considerations? What if you want to have a prenup? If you haven't spent enough time with them and you're doing a prenup, you may not have enough information. The information you have may be limited, and so whatever you put together in a prenup is only limited to the information that you have. But as time goes on, you might discover that there are other things that you'd have taken into consideration had you known of their existence. And immigration and residency, this is a big one. Sometimes you're assuming things because somebody has told you one or two things, or because you say one or two things, somebody assumes something of you. But it takes time to actually know if what you're assuming, or what you heard, or what you were told is the truth. This is something that can make or mar the relationship in itself, because what if you don't have access to them? What if somebody's under the threat of having to do something or having to concede to something that they don't want, because now they're at the mercy of one of the other person, because they cannot get their immigration or residency status without the cooperation of the other person. So if you don't take time to find out what pertains to immigration and residency of this person or yourself, then there can be trouble. So in conclusion, marriage is a lifelong commitment, you really need to take the time and the patience to understand each other deeply and properly, to know whether this is going to make sense. Yes, there is always divorce, but do you really want to be running in and out of divorce? Because the more divorces you have, the more of a red flag it is for the next person who is coming into a relationship with you. So it's not something that you want to do lightly. You only want to consider divorce if you really have no other choice. And so before you get into a marriage, it only makes sense that you spend the time to truly know that this person is worth taking this kind of risk with. Rushing into a marriage without taking the time to know the other person very well will lead to lots of challenges, lifelong challenges if I may add, difficulties, and lots of regrets. And with that, keep these 12 big considerations in mind if you're ever tempted to rush into a relationship and be thinking of heading towards marriage. I really truly hope that you do not consider that. You have my best wishes.